Welcome back to the How to Relate podcast. I'm here with Glenn.
Hi.
Hi.
Fixing my, there we go. Okay.
So you know what's funny? I was thinking about how we first met,
Yeah.
and I knew who you were from Crunch and the gym, but I didn't actually know who you were until I took your yoga class.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's Glenn.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny.
You.
Yeah, it's a lot of. I know it's so funny that you also are a yoga teacher because I feel like we had so many things in common and we ran in such similar circles. Yet we never actually like bumped into each other in those circles.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both worked at the same place for a hot minute.
Yeah.
We
Oh my
both,
gosh, I forgot about
yeah.
that.
Yeah. We've been like in the org.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we became friends.
I know, me too.
Yes.
Makes me very happy.
It makes me happy too.
Mm.
And you're also in school to become a therapist.
I am almost done.
Yeah.
What do I have? 6 more weeks left and then I graduate? I know.
You're so close.
So excited. I applied for graduation yesterday. I know. Applied for my degree.
It's
real.
It's very real.
I know.
I'm excited for you.
Thanks. I'm very excited.
Come join the dark side.
I know, right? Therapist of Raleigh. Here I am.
Here you come.
Mhm.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It's gonna be really fun. I've like had so much fun learning about what I like to do and who I like to work with and what like approaches and things I really like to be using. And I feel like I finally am in a space where I feel very confident in what I do and who I like to work with. And that feels very good.
It's great.
Yeah. I feel like at the beginning you come in, you're like, I want to be a therapist, but you're like, great. Who do you want to work with? How do you want to work with them? What's your approach? How are you going to conceptualize things? And you're like, oh, those are great questions. Let me take 2 years to figure that out.
It's hard to narrow down when you don't know what you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And then the exploring phase can be the fun phase to be in.
Yeah.
I think there is benefits to having the generalist aspect to then go with what you like and don't like.
Yeah. And also thinking too about like, what do the people around me seem to need? Like what's going on in the world right now? What's going on with our culture, with our media that is influencing the way people think or the way people live or the way people move, the way people relate to one another, and what could be beneficial. Like, what are people like seeking out? Maybe that they don't even know yet, but what they're in need for. That's been something that I've been like kind of trying to hold on to or like look at more. Yeah.
The person and the environment as a whole.
Yeah.
And then the environment with people as a whole too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can sit with someone and reflect on all that they've been through, reflect on where they want to go, process a lot of things. But if you're not taking into account the environment that they're living in and how that impacts them, then you're not seeing the whole picture. And so it's important to continue to like stay up to date with what's going on, even if that is on like such a local, small community level. Yeah.
I like to think that just like genes are an expression of the environment, so are people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
At first I was like genes, like Gene. And then I was like, no, genes, but it's so true.
Yeah. Like,
It's like that really tells you a lot about what's going on in the world. Are we people wearing skinny jeans again? And then it's like everyone gets scared. Like, well, I can't go back. We can't go back to that time.
we can't go back to low-rise jeans.
No, absolutely not.
We cannot do
They
that.
tried to make a comeback this summer. I said no.
No.
And that is practicing autonomy and boundaries right there. I say no to low-rise jeans.
Saying no to the trend.
Yes, exactly. I'm stepping away from the group.
Yes.
And I'm still safe.
I think most people stepped away from that group.
Yeah.
I think most of those went on sale pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because they realized, wait, this is not a trend that needs to come
So
back.
we're just like, what are you trying to prove? Cool, you can wear low-rise jeans. Does that make you better than me? No. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It tosses everything up in there, I guess.
It really does.
That's funny.
And speaking of genes, both in the scientific term and in the clothing term, we're talking about embodiment.
It was such a good transition.
Thank you.
Because truly, yes, you have to be embodied to understand how your like body is created, aka genes with a G. And then also like embodied to allow yourself to wear the jeans that feel good in your body, aka JE,
Jay.
that type of gene.
I love those play on words right
Yeah,
now.
that was perfect. That was really good. Yeah, we are talking about embodiment today, which is one of my, I want to say favorite things. Hesitant to say that because it's like a continual practice, but it's such a fun and empowering practice to have once you establish like, okay, what does that mean? Everyone has opinions on what embodiment means. I feel like it's a really big buzzword right now, or at least it has been. When the culture is like shifting away from like diet culture or like really hustle culture, then you'll start to hear the word embodiment and you're like, okay, what does that mean? It sounds enticing. Does that just mean that I like am in my body?
Mhm.
Do I just have a body? What does that mean? And I think it's a really important thing to begin to like, okay, yeah, no, it's actually more than just the fact that you are a human being and you have a body. But that's a great place to start.
It is a good place to start.
Yeah.
How do you begin to explore even the concept of embodiment personally, professionally, in your work with self or others?
I do believe that to do it with others, to work on embodiment with other people, I have to also be working on it myself. That's one of the things where embodiment is something that can be felt by the self, but can also be felt through other people. For instance, like I feel safe being around people like you who are embodied, who have a mindfulness practice, who are aware of yourself, what you need, and how you move through the world, how the world impacts you, and how you impact this space. And so, doing that work, you have to do it on your own before you tell anybody else to do it.
Mm.
Yeah. I think when thinking about embodiment, it's a more than just like, oh, I'm existing in this space in a body. It's thinking about, okay, I've been living in my brain for so long. At least this was my coming to the thought of embodiment was noticing like I'm such a logic brain person. I intellectualize almost everything. I mean, my background is in engineering. Like I just love to live in my brain because I love to have solutions and answers and reasons as to why things happen. That gave me a lot of safety. But then I realized I began to feel like disconnected. Felt like a lot of things were going on that I couldn't find the answer to, or I couldn't reason my way out of feelings that I was having or thoughts that I was having. And that's when I was introduced to the idea of embodiment of I've been trying to rationalize and reason my way through my lived experience in my brain, all while my body's also been having its own experience through everything too. And I haven't taken time to even question or wonder what its experience has been. How does it feel about the things that we've been through? How does it feel right now as I'm beginning to turn to it and ask it, okay, hey, it's been like almost 3 decades of ignoring you. I'm really sorry, but now I want to learn. Okay, what do you have to say? So it's forming that trust, getting out of your mind and into your body.
And I'm imagining formulating that trust is a bit of a trust fall
Yeah.
that it can feel scary because when it's, I want answers and they're not so clear cut, it's
Mhm.
not so black and white,
Mhm.
that then the idea of leaning into the unknown and the uncertainty becomes part of the practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like having that, it does feel like a trust fall. You're right. Especially because I feel like everyone has so many different opinions on what is right, like quote unquote right, and what's the good thing to do, quote unquote good thing to do. And so we're trained in our brains to look to external sources as like, okay, that is what is right. This person says to do this. This person says to do this. So if I do those things, then I will be doing the right thing, therefore I will be good, and then I can rest my case on that. But turning to your body, no one else has your body. No one else is in your body. No one else knows what you're feeling or what your body's trying to tell you. So it's hard to, if you've lived your whole life looking to external validation or external guidance, to begin to turn into yourself. So it's like, I've never been able to do that. I was never told that I could even trust what I wanted or trust what I thought or trust what I need. I thought someone else had to tell me that. And so it does feel like a complete um, rewiring of your brain almost. Like going to someone that you've never talked to before and being like, here, this person's going to help you. And you're like,
Mhm.
wait, what? I've
Yeah.
never gone here before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can feel really, really intimidating and kind of scary.
Sure. Because it's recognizing that there aren't these quote unquote right answers that can feel scary.
Yeah. It feels very scary, and also with that too, that's where you find so much freedom. That's where you find so much independence. That's where you find the joy that comes with living your life because you're doing it the way that you want to. Like you feel most like yourself. I feel like that's where, if in like the IFS, internal family systems world, that's where you step into the aligned self. That's when you're like, okay, that part of me has always been turned off because I've been told to do XYZ throughout my whole life. And so I've been doing that because that helped me to feel like I was good enough. But now I'm turning to myself and saying, what do I actually value? And what do I actually need? What am I wanting to do? Okay, how can I give myself that? And then you begin to feel this sense of, instead of living and looking external, you're walking with like your internal self. So it's a much slower stance. It's less anxious and scrambly.
Hmm.
I feel like you are living when you're looking towards external validation and looking for external guidance, which, like, I want to say caveat is important.
Hmm.
Community is important, connection is important. However, if that's the only source of guidance that you're getting, if that's the only way that you're believing that you are good is by any form of external validation or affirmation, then you're constantly, it feels like you're living on the surface of your skin and you're like scrambling. I'm like bringing my hands, or imagine like you're trying to dig through something really, really fast because you have to get to the bottom. That's what it feels like, this constant scurry feeling. But when you step back and you offer yourself a little bit of slowness just to be able to say, do I actually want to be doing this right now? Is this what feels good for me? Where do I want to go next? And how can I give myself that? It feels like you go from living on the surface of your skin and you step into like the center of your body.
Hmm.
You're like, oh, I am safe here. I don't have to keep moving and scurrying and digging as fast as I was. It's okay if I step back and take a break. Is that all making sense?
It is. It is. Um thinking about, there was a meditation that I once did, and I think it was on Headspace. I don't have it anymore,
Shout
but
out Headspace.
not on Headspace. Um, but and it was talking about how there is an inner being having a human experience,
Hmm.
and that our inner being needs attention. Our human experience gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
This external world, external parts, we're looking for answers, maybe on Instagram or in other places.
Hmm.
And when we take a step back and we ask our internal being, what do you need?
Yeah.
Then we get to go inside of ourselves and
Hmm.
get to know that deeper part than the part that lives in our minds and in our heads, and the one that maybe really loves answers.
Yeah. I really like that because it does feel almost, I want to say primal, but in the sense where it's like, oh, I'm resorting back to how I was created and what I'm supposed to be tapping into.
Mhm.
Something that I've found that I like to do with the clients that I work with at the beginning of our work, especially if we are talking more about like identity formation, feeling more confident, self esteem, feeling more self assured, we'll do an exercise that I like to call the core capsule work. And so take time at the beginning to like calm your body. This just means normally we do a few rounds of breathing. We try to relax any tension in our body, get as comfortable as you can. Because oftentimes in therapy, you're like sitting like you don't trust the couch that you're sitting on. So it's nice to like actually sink in, feel that safety. And then if people feel safe closing their eyes and taking time to picture a capsule at the center of their body. It could be anything. It could be a 'cause some people have said when I say capsule, they picture pill capsules. So that's what they picture. Some people picture boxes. Someone pictured like a pink heart, which is really cute. And so whatever you feel comfortable picturing, just beginning to notice that, notice how big it is, notice any color that it comes with, and then begin to notice, okay, if you were going to open it up and fill it with the things that you know to be true about yourself. Like, who are you? What do you know about yourself? What would go in there? It could be words, it can be feelings, it can be phrases, it could be images. And that's where it's really cool because so many people will come up with different things. Some people will have a lot of words, some people will just picture things, like the image of a sunflower has been brought up. So we'll take time to talk about what's in your core capsule, and then we'll take time to close it and allow it to go back to the place in your body where it lives. And then just noticing how it feels to like know that you're existing in a world where, yes, you have to be on guard a little bit. You have to look external. You have to be in a body and having a lived experience. However, you do have this inner being, like you were saying, your core capsule. When you start to feel a little bit confused, when you feel that scurrying sense, when you feel like you're living on the surface of your skin, okay, where's my core capsule? How can I remind myself of who I know myself to be? And that I love doing that stuff.
That's a beautiful exercise.
Yeah. I don't remember where I got that from. If I learned it in a somatic experiencing training or if I did it with my own personal therapist. I cannot remember, but obviously it stuck with me. Um, Because I think that's one of the first steps of embodiment. It's just noticing where am I normally living in my body? Am I living in my brain? Okay. Look, that's not wrong. That's how you have survived. It's a really functional way to live. Not living in a fully embodied state, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that's how you're getting by right now. But it also doesn't mean that's how it always has to be. So taking time to slow down and step into your body and notice, like, oh, I am having a felt experience. And maybe it's just me noticing that when I think about who I am at my core, I picture a sunflower and that makes me feel warm and that makes me want to smile. And so now my body is sending me the signal that it feels happy and joyful. And I'm recognizing now that my brain is telling me that I'm happy and joyful. And that's when you find that connection.
And I can give myself the space to do this
Yeah.
whenever throughout the day.
Taking time to just notice, okay, where is my core capsule? Where's my little pill capsule? Where's my treasure chest? Whatever picture. How big is it? Does it feel really hard to find? Notice. Maybe it does feel hard to find. Okay. I wonder what that could mean. Can I remember the feeling I had when I created it? When I opened it up and put all that stuff in and then I closed it? Can I remember the feeling I had when I sat with it? Yes. Okay. Can I just begin to feel that and maybe it'll begin to bring itself back forward? My core capsule will begin to be able to be found easier if I begin to feel that felt sense again. It's like training your body.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a different kind of practice,
Yeah.
maybe from what we're used to doing on a day to day.
Yeah.
And it's something that, and with this exercise, I do like it because it feels very accessible. It feels very visual and something that could be tapped into for whenever you need it.
And it's hard too, thinking about who you know yourself to be.
I was about to say that if I'm thinking of people who are achievers,
Mhm.
maybe identify with being
Mhm.
perfectionistic, there we
Mhm.
go. Intellectualizers,
Yeah.
love reason,
Yes.
enjoy having answers, that this might be very challenging
Yeah.
because how do I know?
Yeah. How do I know who I am?
Mhm.
Taking time to notice that question. That's a scary question. I'm sure that that feels very vulnerable to say out loud. I'm sure that that feels a little bit intimidating. You don't have to know right off the bat. But then it turns more into values work. And values work is like at the core of so many things. Okay, what do you love about life? What makes you feel connected to the world around you? What makes you feel connected to the people in your life? How do you hope to be seen? That can tell you a lot about what you value. You care a lot about other people. Okay, you're caring. You work really hard at work. You're dedicated. You have a great amount of passion. You have a great amount of drive. You're a problem solver. And then just notice, like, as you're naming these things, do I have a certain feeling about this? Like, I remember sometime someone told me that they thought that I was very dedicated and
Mm,
very driven. And those are great compliments. Those are great words. When I heard them, I didn't feel like, oh, yes, I feel seen. I don't align with those words, but I didn't know that at the time. It just felt like this internal, like, oh, you see something in me that I don't see in myself. And so just taking notice, like, okay, am I just acting in a world where I feel like I have to be really driven and I have to be really disciplined, but that's not actually how I like to spend my time? And so just being able to notice, like, it's okay if you don't know what's in your core capsule because you're always going to be arriving at more stuff to put in there. You're never going to fully know. That's why you can open it and close it. It's not like a treasure chest, like I mentioned earlier, where you're burying it and you're no longer able to access it. These things change. Maybe you really align at one point in your life when you're working a really intense job. You do align with feeling driven and being really disciplined because it helps you to feel successful, and feeling successful is something that makes you feel confident, makes you feel like you're doing enough. Take note of those. When you begin to notice, like, isn't something that makes me feel like I can sink into that feeling. That feels more like an expectation that I have to meet in order to keep going. Okay, great. Maybe that isn't something we put in your core capsule. Maybe that's just something that's floating around it. It gets in the way to access your core capsule.
there's a difference between the core capsule and a goal.
Yes.
Goals have metrics, they have expiration dates at times. There might be some external value or quantitative measure.
Mhm.
And core capsule is more the internal, I see myself as matter to me.
Mhm.
If someone were to say other types of words, I would feel seen.
Mhm.
Like if driven didn't hit for you,
Mhm.
wondering if kind would hit for you.
Exactly. And that's I love that you brought that up because the conversation of embodiment can feel very frustrating in the world that we're living in currently, where it's like, what do you mean I have to slow down and take care of myself and tend to my needs and notice what my body wants and give it rest in this economy, in this political world? Like, what do you mean? I can't do that. And so, just by what you brought up, it brings to light the duality of things. Like, yes, you can take time to notice who you are, what you feel, what you need, where you want to go, while also taking notice of like, there are things that I have to be doing. There are goals that I have. There are standards and expectations that I want to meet, metrics that I'm being measured up to. but that isn't who I am. Those are things on the surface of my skin. My capsule is at the core. If I just lived at the core capsule, I wouldn't be ever evolving. If I just lived there, I'd be like, cool, this is my little island and I am kind, caring, and content. Those are my like core capsule words. And I'm never going to change. I'm never going to evolve. The stuff on your skin, the stuff that you have to go through, living in like a world in a body means that you're ever evolving. Scary, yes. Exciting, yes.
It opens up possibilities
Yeah.
that to the point of it can be hard to even describe or practice embodiment. Like I've experienced working with clients and I'll say, notice what that's like in your body. And they'll give me a very poignant answer that, if it's like, okay, this is where my heart is, this is how I'm noticing my breathing, everything is very much like I've checked all the metrics. And so then I'm like, can we go a level deeper
Mhm.
that maybe even goes beyond the thought of it
Yeah.
or the intellectualizing part of it? And they're like, "What are you expecting of me?" And I'm like, "Great question. How do I even describe this?"
Yeah.
So it can be a challenging thing to describe because it goes beyond words at times.
Yeah.
It really is can I feel centered in the space that I'm in? Can I go inwards just a little bit more? And yes, the mind can be a trailhead to get us there, but it may be that we eventually leave that trailhead to go beyond what the mind does,
Yeah.
which I think things like meditation or things like the capsule exercise,
Mhm.
like can help us get there
Mhm.
and at least be starting points.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a little roadmap. And these are like the um checkpoints or the things that help you along the way. It's like, okay, great. I've checked my breathing. I've checked my heart rate. I checked my stomach. Do I feel nauseous? Okay. I still don't feel great, but I've done all the things. Okay. We're also looking for an answer right now. Like that's what we're doing in our head. And that happens a lot. Like I'll do this. My clients will do this where I'll ask them, how are you feeling? They'll answer with, I think that I'm feeling this. And I'm like, you think you're feeling? What if you just say, I feel? Get out of your brain, get back into your body. You left because it felt uncomfortable, or maybe you left because you didn't know what was going on. So you had to try to find a reason. And also, we're so quick to notice something that's going on in our body and be like, that's not normal. Something's wrong. I have to figure out something's wrong. If you're like, oh, I feel a little bit nauseous at that thought. Why do I feel nauseous? Is it because of something I ate? Is it because of what I did this morning? Is it because of something that I'm talking about? And you're like, okay, we don't have to have the solution or the reason right now. Can you tolerate the feeling for a little bit longer? Because I like to think about oftentimes it feels like, and this is something I think my personal therapist shared with me, that oftentimes it feels like this is just a great image. Your head is a balloon and you're holding the end of the balloon where the air gets let out right by your throat. And then you have the rest of your body.
Mm.
All of your existence is inside the balloon. So you're just living in your brain. What would it be like to release the grip on that and have some of your existence come into your body? When it feels really scary, you go back up to your brain because that's where you solve, that's where you rationalize, that's where you conceptualize, that's where you make a plan, that's where you can escape to. When you take time to drop in and be like, oh, I'm just noticing, then you're just building up that endurance because it does feel like endurance to be able to stay in your body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is an endurance practice.
Yeah.
Can I be here in the tough emotion? Can I be here in this space where I do feel anxious or frantic?
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to figure out if someone's mad at me or if someone thinks poorly of me, or did I make the deadline, or did that fight with my significant other really still is resonating with me and it's 3 p.m. and we're seeing each other at 5:30 and how is it going to be?
Hmm.
That all of these things throughout the day, I think influence our disconnection
Yeah.
and lead us to our heads to try and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Because it just feels so unsettling.
Mhm.
And then but then it gets curious. Okay, why does that feel so unsettling? You had a disagreement with your partner this morning and it's 3 p.m. and they're going to be home in 2 hours and you feel overwhelmed by it, or you feel this like pit in your stomach and a little bit quickness in your heart rate when you think about it. Okay, now I have to solve it. I have to figure out, why is it still bothering me? What do I need to say? How are we going to talk about this? But if you go to the feeling, okay, what is this feeling trying to tell me? I'm anxious because we had a disagreement. Okay, why am I anxious about it? Am I nervous that I'm scared this is going to end our relationship? Am I nervous that I did something wrong, and if I did something wrong then that means that I'm a horrible person? Like, sitting with the emotion is a great way to understand, okay, this is the emotion that I'm feeling. These are the sensations that I'm having. Okay, great. What meaning am I now making from that emotion? What story am I assigning this emotion to? And that might be the part that feels intolerable. When
Mhm.
you're like, okay, great. I went into my body. I noticed that I feel XYZ. And then you start to think of a narrative or a story or a meaning about those things. So you're like, "Oop, I gotta go back up to my brain and solve it."
Mhm.
Because the meaning can feel really intimidating. It can feel really scary. It can also feel very final if you sit with it for a little bit. Like, what if you build that tolerance? Okay, I feel very scared that because I had this disagreement about unloading the dishwasher with my partner this morning, that when they get home from work, they're going to tell me that it's over and they're going to leave me. And it's going to confirm the fact that I don't think that I'm good enough for anyone. And then it will be like, oh, that even made just now
Mhm.
my stomach feel heavy.
Yeah.
Like, but taking time to notice, okay, do I actually feel like that is reality right now? Like, that feels really heavy. There's a part of you in your body that actually is sending off that like alert signal
Mm.
of like, we're on the path to being left alone forever. I like to think of Inside Out, like all those
Love it.
different emotions. Like, there's the like one that pulls all the alert bells for the biggest fears in your life. And
Uh-huh.
it just is ringing this one bell really loud. And by not going to it, it just is going to keep ringing it over and over and over again until you actually acknowledge it. So you can keep running back up to your brain, keep trying to solve it. You're still going to have this nagging, ringing going on in your body until you go towards it.
Mhm.
I love analogies.
Same.
I was gonna
Oh,
say, like, another analogy that I have for this that I love to use is when our brain and our body are two distinct different things. When we go through things, our brain can make logic sense of that. I feel like we've spoken a lot to that so far. When our body goes through it, it's like a pinball machine. Every emotion, it gets released into our body and just starts banging all around. And that's every time we experience a new emotion, a new thing that happens, it launches these pinballs. So imagine if you're just living in your head all the time. You have a million pinballs just shooting around in your body. Of course you feel uncomfortable. Of course it probably feels like you don't even know where to start.
mm,
But that's where you just pick one. Like, oh, okay. I have tightness in my chest. Let me see if I can just breathe a little bit. I don't have to know what this tightness is from, because maybe this is emotion from 16 years ago that I haven't dealt with. I
mhm,
just have to say, hey, body, I'm seeing and I'm feeling and listening to you. You feel tight. You feel anxious. It's hard to breathe. Okay, right now, what do you need? You need to breathe. So let's just breathe. Yeah.
yeah. I like to say that there's an inner 5-year-old in
Mhm.
us, and the inner 5-year-old may be believing some of the stories that the mind is making up, and maybe that internal 5-year-old needs a hug.
Yeah.
Maybe that inner 5-year-old needs someone to say, "Hey, I got you,"
Yeah.
so that it does feel like there's someone there for me.
I know. Cause you wouldn't, if you saw a little 5-year-old on the street, you wouldn't yell at it.
No.
If it was crying, you wouldn't just be like, "Oh, come on." I mean, maybe on your worst day when you're really late for work, you might do that, but, like, 9 out of 10 times, you would just go and be like, "Hey, You seem to be having a hard time. What do you need? What would feel helpful for you? Or maybe you wouldn't even use your words. Like you said, you would just give them a hug.
Mhm. Yeah, the felt sense that I'm not alone
Mhm.
or that I'm comforted or someone's here for me.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a good way to what the way that you just said that of I'm not alone, the felt sense of just like feeling connected to something. Kind of going back to when we talked at the beginning of constantly looking for external approval and validation, and then turning to an embodiment practice where you're able to turn to yourself and kind of be like, "You're okay. I know who you are. We're doing okay." It's creating that sense of secure attachment with yourself
Mhm.
where I don't know about you, but I know for me, like attachment styles and relationships, like it was always told to me that it's the goal is to have secure relationship with other people. Like
Mhm.
you have to be secure with others. And it took me so long to realize that the only way to be secure with others is to be secure with yourself. Like you cannot provide, just like we talked at the beginning, you can't provide an embodiment practice for someone if you're not embodied yourself or working on it. You can't be in a secure relationship with other people unless you know what security and safety feels like for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wonder what it's like for you to think about security and embodiment from a relationship standpoint.
Yeah, I think, especially in seeing it in real time with couples, you can see where even physically people feel anxious or people feel like I need to pull away.
Mhm.
And there, those alarm bells are going off to send the alert signal of this relational space that we're in feels threatening.
Mhm.
And I think that secure relationships can show us how we can feel secure in ourselves. I love the show Nobody Wants This.
Mhm.
And I love the scene where Joanne or Kristen Bell's character is talking to Adam Brody or Noah. And she gets really vulnerable and says that my worst fear is that someone's going to believe that I'm too much. And he's able to stand there and be in that space with her and even put his hand on her shoulder as she's not looking at him. And just to say, it doesn't have to say the thing, but just that hand on shoulder, like, I got you.
Mhm.
Just that simple, like, way of saying, you can feel secure with me.
Yeah.
I think that people can show us how we can feel that within ourselves. I also think that we do need to feel it within ourselves and be able to feel it with others, that there's an
Absolutely.
and both to it.
Mhm.
Because I think when we go with the attachment styles or attachment strategies, the anxious strategy wants someone to save them from how they're feeling.
Mhm.
And if we just keep looking for others to save us from how we're feeling, we're not really giving ourselves a chance to build our own inner trust.
Mhm.
When the avoidant feels like no one is safe to be around, or I can't trust you and I need to keep running away, then it's also not giving the opportunity to build trust with others. It can be very self reliant,
Mhm.
but that's not building trust with others. And that is very much nervous system embodiment,
Yeah.
trying to keep self safe
Yeah.
when in a relational environment feels strained, whether it is or perceivingly is,
Yeah.
because that could be some old stuff coming up
Yeah.
from what we might have experienced before. And the other person has no idea how you're experiencing it.
Yeah. Yes. And that is like such a good point of whether or not my environment, whether or not the person is actually like I actually can't trust them or I just like am being reminded of something.
Mhm.
Because I think that's also where embodiment comes in too. Maybe the story that your body is like maybe what your body's feeling if it's trying to tell you that you're really scared and there's no perceived threat, you're able to come up to your brain and be like, I shouldn't feel this anxious. Like,
Mhm.
it's really not that big of a deal. And then you start to shame yourself for it. That's actually not, I'm like, that's actually not helpful. Of course, it's not helpful. But it's not helpful because then you're telling your body, hey, I don't want to listen to you anymore. And then you're taking away the trust that you're beginning to build. by being able to say, like, "Oh, you feel like we are 8 years old again, and we're about to not be picked up from school, and so we feel like our parents have forgotten us, and that's what you're feeling right now, even though we are 2 decades away from that."
Mhm.
Okay, instead of writing that off, again, think about the 5-year-old kid, you wanna be like, "Stop crying, it's okay, like, get over it." You would say, "Oh, wow, I understand why you feel that way.
Mhm.
I see you, and also we're safe. We don't have to feel that scared right now. Thank you for letting me know that you feel scared right now. Let me tell you and let me show you that we're safe." That's like the Kristen Bell sign of like, "Thank you for telling me that you feel scared. I'm going to show you right now that you don't need to be. And I'm going to continue to show you that." So creating that secure attachment and dialogue with yourself allows you to then be able to do that with other people. Because, like you said, we can't just do it on our own. Like, we were not created to be individuals that live without connection. We have to be in connection with other people. But how can I make sure that I'm not just relying on other people to come save me? How can I also practice that with myself? Yeah.
Yeah. It and it's totally a practice, and it's super messy. Like,
Yeah.
intimacy, into me you see.
Mhm.
I also like to say into messy
Mhm.
because it's super messy and it can feel very disorganized at times, and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
not meant to then, okay, we need a broom to clean it all up.
Mhm.
It can be that we're navigating the messiness of life together. And yeah, we are relational creatures. And that is part of the human experience is to be able to navigate the messiness all together.
Yeah. And that's why, like, having a embodiment practice is so much more than just, "What am I feeling?"
Mhm.
Or, "Oh, I have tension in my shoulders." It's like, that's a great place to start. Again, you have to start somewhere. It's a building that endurance over time. However, so much good comes out of a practice of embodiment. Not only healing and safety and connection with yourself, but by having an embodiment practice, you're able to heal in community because you're slowing down enough to regulate your own system, which helps to help others regulate their own system.
Mhm.
That's why healing in connection and healing in community is so important. Having an embodiment practice helps you to slow down enough to tap into how you're feeling. So that way you can seek out help from other people. You don't have to do it alone. Regulating your own like emotional system and regulating your nervous system and regulating your thoughts, like that's a difficult thing. You don't have to do it by yourself. But taking notice of what am I feeling? Okay, what do I need? Do I feel safe to ask for that? And that's where like the relational aspect comes in. Because attachment styles, they're all, do I trust myself? Do I trust someone else? Or do I trust the world around me?
Yeah.
And if it's a no to each, okay, great. You're fearful, disorganized. How can I begin to form a little bit of trust with myself? And how can I use the safe people in my life? Maybe it's just a few. How can I use them to help me to learn that I can trust the outside world too?
Mhm.
But that also means taking notice of when you don't feel safe. And that's an embodiment practice. Okay, are we actually under attack right now? Are we under a threat? Do I actually need to like bunker down like my body's telling me to? No. However, the feelings are real.
Mhm.
My body can't see like my brain can. How can I convey safety to my body through my thoughts, through the felt sense, even if it's like putting your hand on your heart? I'll tell my clients, and I'll do this too. You look like it, you have to not worry about what you look like, but I will go on walks around my neighborhood just with my hand over my heart and I'll push my hand down into my chest or I'll like tap the center of my chest. Just being able to say like, "Hi, body. I've spent all day in my brain. I haven't even taken time to notice what you're feeling. And right now you're telling me you feel a lot of things.
Mhm.
So let's just go for a really slow, mindful walk and let me tell you that I'm trying to pay attention. You don't have to tell me right away because maybe you don't trust me right now since I haven't checked in. but just know that I'm here. I'm sending that signal.
I love that.
Mhm.
And having a physical, like, hand on heart
Mhm.
or, I I mean, we both teach yoga, so
Yeah.
I often like to do a breathing where it's kneeling or the hero's pose,
Mhm.
and I have one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, or both
Mhm.
hands on the thighs,
Yeah.
and having like that kind of breathing practice because it feels like I'm like holding myself
Yeah.
and allowing myself space to breathe.
Yeah, it's so cool. I know
Yes.
the class that I taught last night was a restorative class, and we started with the chance to lay on your spine and wrap your arms around yourself. It's like you're giving yourself a hug, but you didn't have to put a lot of pressure into your arms. So you're just like having your arms draped around towards your sides and breathing into it. So allowing your body to take up more space as you breathe in and notice like your arms are there, like you're protected. You can expand because the concept of like taking up space and getting out of your little tiny bubble if you feel like you have to be in this little tiny bubble all the time can feel really intimidating. So having that weight of your own arms to say like I'm here with you too. You're expanding and you're safe is really really nice. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, to have the and of.
Mhm.
I think about the word confidence is also coming up around this
Mhm.
because it has so many conceptions around what confidence is.
Yeah.
But if the true meaning of the word is trust from within, and there's a trust researcher named Rachel Botsman, and she found that trust is created in risk.
Mhm.
And it is giving ourselves the opportunities to take these risks with ourselves
Yeah.
to build trust.
Mhm.
And I think like having a baseline that's there to then be able to build on top of it.
Yeah.
If I think of what it's like to build trust with other people, it's starting off small. You exchange names, you
Yeah.
exchange thoughts about the weather, and then you start to build on that. And that's what creates an ability to be able to take the risks of vulnerability and open up those spaces for an embodied practice with self and also how to do it with other people.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Starting off really slow and then slowly growing. Because yeah, you aren't often going up to the grocery store, to a coffee shop, and then entering a conversation where you tell someone the deepest part of your thoughts or your heart.
Just so you know, when you become a therapist in a couple weeks,
Yeah.
that's going to happen to you.
I know that's where you just tell people that you work in HR or
Yeah,
something else.
I think I'm just going to tell people I'm a consultant
You're
because
like,
it's vague,
very vague.
very vague,
Yeah.
and it half true.
Just get a lot of the, "Oh, good for you. We need more of you in the world." And
Exactly.
you're like, "Okay,
Uh huh.
I don't know how to respond to that. I
Yes,
love what I do. Thanks. Can we talk about something else?"
exactly.
But
For
yeah,
the most part.
yes, for the most part,
Yeah.
you don't walk up to someone and just share the deepest part of your thought at that moment because you have no clue who they are. You don't know what they think. You don't know how they perceive you. You don't even know if they're a safe person to be talking to. So you withhold yourself and you do that because of safety. Safety is such a big part of embodiment. Oftentimes, you come out of your body because something has happened, whether it's a big thing that you remember or whether it was small things over time. Your body slowly began to become a place that wasn't safe to be in. And so you resort up to your brain because that's where you can solve everything, like we've mentioned. So, doing little things to build that trust of just dropping in for a second to notice your breathing. It's like your body's starting to recognize, like, "Oh, you're turning towards me. You've lived your whole life without looking at me." I like to picture it as if my brain and my body are two different beings walking through the world. My brain's always entering a room first and my body's right behind it. And that's like a safety mechanism for me. I feel safe when I'm in my brain because I can rationalize, I can solve, I can take note, I can notice whatever I need to notice. I'm on high alert. But also that means that my body has lived its whole life with me never turning around to notice it. Just me being like, "Oh yeah, she's there. Body's behind me." I don't need to worry about her. She always follows in my footsteps. That over time can feel like neglect
Mhm.
because it is. Think about any other relationship that you're in. If you're constantly going on a walk with someone and they're never looking at you, they might trust that you're there. Maybe they feel good that you're behind them. But if they're never turning to you and asking you how you're doing or what you have to say or what you need, that feels like neglect.
Mhm.
And so taking intentional time to look over your shoulder and say, I'm really glad you're here. Or what are you feeling? What do you need? Do you have anything to say about this that we're going through right now? Your body's not going to trust you right away. It's going to be like, oh, okay, great. You turned around once. I don't think you're ever going to do it again. And so the more that you do it, it is building up that trust. And then maybe over time, slowly, instead of your body walking behind you, now your body's walking next to you. One doesn't have to be in front of the other. Maybe your mind is going to slip in front of your body when things start to get a little bit intimidating, when you feel a little bit of fear, when you feel unsafe. That is your protective mechanism. Respect that, honor that, thank yourself for doing that. Okay, great. Now, how can I come back to be walking next to myself? My body, my brain next to myself when I enter into rooms. Yeah.
I like that analogy a lot.
I think it's like my seventh analogy.
We can count. I love analogies.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, most they create visuals
Yeah.
around abstract concepts that help make it feel like, okay, this is what I can see and this is how I can experience it
Yeah.
in a way that's like a story. I think we like analogies the same way we like stories. Yeah.
Especially for embodiment. Like, embodiment, what does that even mean? I even before I came here, I was like, I wonder what just like the Webster definition for it. And it was like of pertaining to a body.
That sounds like a very Webster definition to it.
It's
Yeah.
like that does not help at all.
It's like wonderful.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, we need analogies then. If that's what Webster's going to give us, that doesn't help me whatsoever. It
Yeah.
made me feel confused. I feel
Yeah.
like I know a lot about embodiment. So I was like, this isn't helpful.
Yeah. Psychology takes Webster terms and makes them into like a research project,
Yep.
but how it actually exists and then expands on it. That's
Mhm.
how I like to think that psychology kind of works.
It's funny. You're like, let's take this thing that's really confusing and then let's try to make it a little bit less confusing and more generalized to everyone.
And make it even more confusing all at the same time.
Yeah. Gonna make it so general so that everyone can use it, but it's gonna be so confusing because it's so generalized.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what psychology is.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why, like, sometimes with embodiment practices, it can feel so, and I'll say this with my clients too, like the stuff that I say, I'm like, look, I kind of get grossed out by the stuff that I'm saying because I know how cliche it sounds coming from a therapist, like coming from someone where it's like, okay, but can you sit with that feeling? Or like, what does that feeling feel like? Like, it feels like such a silly question, but actually, when you take time to be like, oh, therapy doesn't have to be the most insanely thought provoking, mind blowing thing ever. Sometimes it is just, wow, I've been living in my brain for a lot of time. What does my body have to say?
It's a space where you have a dedicated time to experience new parts of you.
Yeah.
And it may not be new in the sense of discovering something new, but maybe it's different in the way that it isn't operative parts of your brain that you've been using all day to from the time you wake up, drive to work, do your job, figure out what you're eating for lunch, get home, figure out what's for dinner, and figure out what the nighttime routine is looking like, and then we sleep and do it all over again the next day. I think it's really the space to ask the cliche questions,
Yeah.
but to actually explore them and get to know other parts of you.
Yeah. And doing embodiment in a therapy room is a really structured way to begin. Because when else, the way you just described the day, you're like, you wake up, you figure out what you want to eat, you figure out how to get to work. It was a lot of figuring out and then doing it. It's a lot of how do I want to go about this? And then you go about it. There isn't much time to actually slow down and question and be curious. and find that connection. And, like, oftentimes, if I'm teaching a yoga class in the evening, I will notice myself and I will cue other people to notice too. Like, this might be the first time all day you've noticed the fact that you even are breathing.
Mhm.
Like, it's taken me, even right now, it's like just past noon, and I'm like, I haven't taken one mindful breath at all today. Like, even just notice that I was breathing. So, just allowing yourself to find that space, whether it's in a therapy room, whether it's 30 seconds on your couch or right before you fall asleep, just be like, okay, what am I noticing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's kind of a funny story. So I'm in physical therapy. I
Mhm.
I have this injury. It's nagging. It's been going on for months. And pretty much every week I've been in physical therapy since like September.
The worst.
It is. My physical therapist is great. And we use a lot of breathing techniques because we're using this modality called Postural Restoration Institute.
Mhm.
So I thought I was nailing it, which in itself is funny because he was like, "You're trying to outmuscle what your body's naturally trying to do." He's
Mhm.
like, "You're doing a really good job of the technique and feeling your heel and noticing how far internally rotated your leg is." And he's like, "But can you just let your body breathe?" And then he talked to me like one would talk to a 5-year-old. And
Mhm.
I was like, "We're just going to breathe and we're going to just let our back be against the wall. And we're just going to notice what it's like to reach with our right arm and just coach me through it like that."
Yeah.
And he's like, "You have to try to relax." I thought, wow, okay, I have to try to relax. Like, this is going to be an active process. And in doing that, of don't overthink it, don't try and outmuscle it, it's actually been way more, "Oh, wow, I'm really feeling it in my body."
Yeah.
I'm now letting my body do what it needs to. I'm
Mhm.
I'm doing the movements, they have positions to it, but just to breathe in that and
Mhm.
go, I don't have to try not muscle it or let it be different is a whole new
Mm.
experience.
That sounds like, again, of building of trust.
Oh, yeah.
Allowing your brain to say, "Okay, we don't need you right now.
Mhm.
Let me see if my body can do this.
Yes.
Let my body be the body that it needs to be right now. Let it breathe, let it rest, let it be
Yeah.
slow." And then it actually is like, "Oh my gosh, brain, thank you for stopping and stopping controlling us because
Mhm.
now I can actually do my job,
Yep.
which is to take care of myself," which is really, really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah. I know. I feel like that's like when you get sick and you try to take all the medicine and drink all the elderberry syrup and eat all the soup and do all the things, but your body's just like, "Hey, can you just let me sleep? And then I'm gonna be fine."
Yeah, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. You can
Mhm.
try and control it. There's some things that could help, but
Yeah.
there's a limitation to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we segue because we love movement.
Mhm.
Want to talk about movement
Yeah.
and how I think movement can be a tool for embodiment.
Yeah.
I also think movement can move us away from it.
That is the perfect sentence. Yes. Yeah.
It can do both.
Yeah. And I know, like, I personally have been walking that line of like, what is my movement right now? Mindful, do I feel embodied? Or am I just doing it because I feel like I quote unquote should? Or it's just my routine. This is what I do. This is who I am. I'm this person who goes to this place and does this thing at this time.
Mhm.
It can feel so restorative when you're doing movement to connect with your body, to allow your body to have an outlet. Kind of when you allow like your brain to shut off and you become more of that like primal instinct of like, let me just move because it feels good. This is like what I'm craving. But again, sometimes with the days that we have and the world that we live in, you have to schedule it. It has to be certain time. And then everyone has an opinion on what's the right way to move and what's the wrong way to move. What's in right now and what you should be doing, especially as women. Like,
Mhm.
this is how your body should look. This is how your movement should look. This is what you need to be doing in order to be good
Mhm.
at this day and age. There's a lot of traps. Yeah. and beginning to take time to notice, okay, what does embodied movement look like? It's very similar to any form of the practice that we've been discussing. Just noticing, like, what do I hope? Like, why do I want to move? That's a really great question to ask. Do I like to move because I like to feel strong? It helps me to feel grounded. Do I like to move because it's a great way for me to get out of my house and connect with my community and connect with my friends? Am I moving to control some aspect of my life? Like, these are great questions to be curious about. Again, there's no, like, it's not so black and white. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. Sometimes falling into a routine of movement can feel very restorative and very helpful, but also sometimes taking notice of, like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. Like, I just took a break from my routine movement because I noticed that I wasn't having fun doing it. I felt like I was doing it because it was what I did every day, and I got used to that movement pattern, and I got used to waking up at that time and going in to the one place and seeing the people that I see, which were all the great joys that I got out of it, where the connection and the groundedness that I feel when I'm, like, seeing people that I love. But the actual physical movement of it felt more like a chore, and it wasn't as restorative as I wanted it to be.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, there's something that doesn't feel right here." Like, I felt more sluggish, my body felt tired. I wasn't, like, able to do the things that I wanted to be doing because my body didn't have the energy.
Mhm.
But that's when you get the signals like, "Oh, you have to go, you have to keep going, like, this is what you need to be doing.
Mhm.
Strength training for women is so important because it helps your bones as you age." I was like, "Okay, my body's tired though.
Mhm.
Not having a ton of fun doing this."
Yeah.
So taking a step back and finding something that does feel good. Okay, going on walks. Yoga is such a great mindful movement,
Mhm.
especially if you find a studio and a space that you trust and you feel safe in. You're able to, like, actually tap into your felt sense of your body rather than, like, worried about the environment, the other people, what you look like. It's such an important practice.
I do love that.
Mhm.
The hardest part is knowing when to push through and knowing when to pull back.
Mhm.
And as you were saying, if it's no, I have to, then that is the sign to pull back.
Yeah.
When it feels like this is the lifeline I'm clinging to feel okay,
Yeah.
it's the hardest thing to pull back
Mhm.
and maybe the medicinal thing.
Yeah. Hardest thing because it is prescribed
Mhm.
by so many people as, like, a game changer for your life, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your emotional health. Movement, exercise are such good things. However, like you said, when it becomes to a point where it's like, what if I don't do this, then what do I do? And you're like, "Oh, okay, we're relying too much on this." There's a little fear there. What am I scared of? If I don't do this, what am I so scared of? I think I need to take time to, like, again, build the trust. Let my body see, let my brain see that if I take time away from this, like, one thing that I used to do all the time, that I'm gonna be okay. Because it's just you get in those movements of, "This is what's normal," and so then you build that trust with whatever is normal. You find security. Maybe not trust is the right word, but security is. And, like, this is the normal, and when you begin to question, like, "Oh, if I don't have this anymore," and you start to get a little nervous, you're like, "Oh, okay. Maybe that is a good sign that I need to take a little bit of a break, change things up."
Mhm.
Allow myself to know that, like, that isn't the only coping thing that I have. I can regulate on my own. This is a great tool. We'll come back to it someday, but it doesn't have to be today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's other tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. But I mean, for people who, again, like the balloon analogy, like, you live so much in your brain, having practices that allow you to just feel fully body are great.
Oh, yeah.
which is like any form of movement, especially in spaces where you do feel safe, like to take up space, to allow your body to expand, to get curious of what it feels like to do this, what it feels like to breathe into your stomach as you do whatever movement you're doing, what it feels like to go on a walk and truly just notice the fact that you're on a walk. Like, how many times have I gone on a walk and I've just looked down at my feet, taking time to look up and look around,
Mhm.
fully immersing yourself into the environment that you're in, allowing your body to take over is a really, really beautiful way to feel embodied. And then also advocating for your body, knowing like, I'm tired, I want to stop.
Mhm.
I feel like I can do more. Okay, great. Let's go we have energy. My body's energized. Let's go do something with this energy. Let's go do something fun that I want to do. Or saying, like, today my body actually wants to do something slow. Thanks for telling me that, body. I'm not going to push you. I
Mhm.
want you to trust me. So let's go do something slow. Creating that like security and that trust with yourself.
Yeah. Which it like leans into the challenges and it also creates that trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like you said earlier of it's not so much like leaning into trust. It feels like a whole fall
Yeah.
because there's so much, you find so much stability in certain things and not going to those things. It can feel very you're like, well, what if?
Oh my
What's going to
gosh.
happen?
Right. What if my routine got shaken up? Then
Yeah.
what? Then
Am I
how
gonna
do
be
I
able to work? Am I
yeah.
gonna function at my job
How am
if
I
I
gonna
can't do this thing?
yeah, how's my day gonna go? How
Yeah,
am I gonna feel grounded throughout the day?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I understand that you feel a little bit threatened. It feels a little scary to not do this one thing. Let's just do it. Let me show you that one day without doing this thing, you're gonna be fine.
You
And so that way I can begin to notice, like, okay, you are feeling tired. Okay, great. Let's not do anything today. Let's take time to rest. And then actually giving that. That allows your body to feel like it's when it wants to voice things, it's going to voice them more often because you're actually paying attention.
any other thoughts or final helpful tidbits or practices that you want to leave us with?
I do feel like it is important to remember that embodiment is hard
Mm.
and there's no final arrival at embodiment. I've never met someone who is consistently 100% embodied every single day of their life. So it's very similar as understanding who you are. It's always going to be a practice. It's always going to change. The more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you do it, the more aligned and grounded you can feel. But it's always a practice. No one's ever going to be like the best at it,
Mhm.
but everyone deserves that. It can feel like in this world, the best way to live is brains moving forward, bodies like on a leash behind you. But that's not how it has to be because that doesn't feel very good. You're running around all day, brain first. You get home and haven't even taken time to notice how this like thing that you're living in is feeling, what it's trying to tell you. It feels really good when you just take a second to slow down enough to say, okay, you're tired today. I'm sorry I didn't pay attention to you. I know you understand that it was a really busy day. Tomorrow, I'll look at you a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
Seriously, anytime you want to come on,
Great.
you have an open invitation.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. So many people can learn more about what it's like to become a therapist in Raleigh.
Oh my gosh.
Graduation, licensure, all the things.
It's a process.
It is a process, but it's so fun because throughout all of it, you just learn what you like to be doing and who you want to be with. And yeah,
That is the beauty of our jobs. It's such a fun job to have.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
We get to meet a lot of cool people, both with who we work with and clients and in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's best. Thanks for having me.
Of course, anytime. Thanks for coming, and we'll connect with you all next time.
Bye.